Ketvach, Moed. We're on Daf Chaf Aleph, Amid Aleph. We're learning as a schus for Shlema for Ilan Chai Baserach and Shira Bashalamis. We are 7 lines down. Iboilu. Ma'ul Kaddish Yad V'Raglav Bekir. We're still talking about the Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim, the daily Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim that when a Kayin was coming to do Avodah, he had to wash his hands and feet in the Kir. So this washing of hands. What if he did it instead of doing it the proper way? We saw before that the Kir had 12 spouts. He was supposed to use the water coming out of the spouts to wash his hands. Instead of doing that, he stuck his hands into the Kir itself. Oh, good to see you again, Dovi. I hope you didn't get caught in the rain on the way home. No, it's okay. There's very few people who didn't catch rain either on the way there.
A little bit on the way. Okay. Did you eat outside today?
Yeah, we ate very late. By the time we ate, the sun was out already, so it worked out well. Yeah, we started like 2:33. So we're on Kaf Aleph Amid Aleph. The question is, if a person, instead of using the water coming out of the Kir, he uses the water in the Kir to wash his hands. The Kayin washes his hand with that. Mimenu Amar Rachmana v'loy b'seicha. The Torah said, "V'rachzu Aaron ubanu mimenu es yedeim es ragleim." So mimenu, from it, but not inside of it. Aydam afilu b'seicha, maybe even using the water inside. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Tashma. I'll bring you a raya. We brought this earlier. Taval b'mei ma'ara of Avad. If we gave a bunch of options, a bunch of possibilities that a person might try to do instead of doing rechitzas yadayim reglayim from a kir. Instead, he dunked himself in the water of basically of a mikvah, and he did avodah psula. He didn't do kiddush yadayim reglayim. But mashma hamei kir dumya demei mara. The problem seems to be because it wasn't a klisharis. It was because it was in a pit. But a pit, obviously, the way you do a pit is not from spouts; it's jumping in. So it sounds like the problem is only the fact that it's a cave and not a kir. But if hamei kir dumya the meimar of avid share, it's mashma. But if you do dunk into the kir, that would be good enough. So meimara it's strichale. We didn't say the meimara to tell you that even dunking is enough. We wanted to tell you the chiddush of that, even though it's a mikvah. He has to wash his hands. We're only talking about washing your hands from that water, but we thought maybe since a mikvah is kosher for tefillah, so maybe that's different. You usually need a klisharis. It has to be from something like the kir, which is a klisharis. But maybe a mikvah, since it's able to be tayvel someone and kasher him from tumah, it will also be good enough to take the place of a klisharis or a kiyar, that if you take water from it and pour it on your hands, it will kasher. But we never thought that that dunking your hands in would be enough to take the place of the kiddush yadayim reglayim. Okay. So with the next sugya is a bit challenging, and I think the way to think about it that makes it a little more accessible is that the way it typically worked with the kiddush yadayim reglayim, as we said, there's a din lina, and we're gonna see a different sheet. But the way it worked was they would take the kiyar, which was full of water. It was attached, like those old-fashioned Jack and Jill line up the hill, the well with the windlass, the crank. So they had it attached to such a thing, a crank or a wheel that they would turn and lower that water deep down into the Mayim Chayim, into the Mei Goyla, the original source of water. And while it was there was no such thing as lina. That was the source of water, and the water couldn't be treated as if it was left overnight. So they would do that before Shkia. That was really the end of the day's avodah. Then pick it up the next morning. That was the general plan. So Zaktima, Amr Chia Yosef, make here the water in the kiyar. So now we've been talking about the person. We had the machlekes Rebbe and Rosh Hashanah, whether the water that a person toveled in, the kayin after he did the kiddush yadayim reglaim, when does that expire? Now we're going to talk about the water itself, the water in the kiyar, when it has a din lina. So he says, make kiyar nifsalin lematirin kimatirin. It's going to be possible for someone who wants to use it for matirin. Excuse me. The matirin is the avodas hadam, those things that are used to be mater the basar to go to be eaten. So that includes shchita, kabbalah, halacha, and zrika. Or in the case of a mincha, it's the kaimitz, the avodah that you do with the kaimitz, which is the equivalent. Those things are matirin. Those are all things that you do during the day. And if a person has dam that he didn't avodah with, at the end of the day, that dam it becomes over on lina, and it's possible. So he says if you're intending to do one of those avodas, which are generally avodas that are done by day, so the water that you use for that has to be water that did not overstep the evening. It didn't remain past shkia. So I guess the application of this would be if there was water that wasn't lowered down into that pit, it left it out, and it's Motzei. It's an hour after shkia, and the kohen washes his hands, and then the next day he wants to do the avodas hadam. That would not work, because since the water had a lina past the time of the matirin, past the daytime, so it's also to use for matirin for the avodas hadam. Le'evarim, but if he wants to do the avodah of the evarim, the way the normal seder of the karbanis were, you do the avodas hadam during the day, but then you had the night to do the evarim, to do the limbs of the carbon that go on to the mizbeach, that get burnt on the mizbeach, that you're allowed to do at night. So if he's intending to do that kind of work, ke'evarim, it's like the evarim themselves. Just like you can do the avodah of the evarim at night, the water that's being used for kiddush yadayim reglayim, it could also be water that remained at night. It doesn't get passled because it was not lowered into the pit by shkia. That is the sheet of Rav Chia Bar Yosef. So he says it's going to depend on what he's intending to do. That's going to dictate whether which water is going to be pasul and which water is going to be kosher. Sometimes the same water, the same meikir, could be kosher to wash his hands, to do the avodah of the evarim, but not kosher to do the avodah with the meiturim. Rav Chizda Amar. Now, but everyone's going to agree when it comes to the morning, you're going to have to, for any kind of avodah, if it's going to be daybreak and the water is going to be out exposed, that's going to, whatever your intentions are, at that point it's going to become pasul, whether you're using it for matirin or evarim, because evarim also can't stay past the morning. That's Rav Chia Bar Yosef. Rav Chizda Amar, he says we don't make this distinction. If the water is not placed lower down, down below ground into the mayim chayim by daybreak, then it can't be used for anyone to be mekadosh yadayim reglayim, either for matirin, the avodah that's done by day, or the evarim, the avodah that's done by night. Either one of them, it's not going to be possible. That means even matirin, if he washes his hands at night, it's fine. If it stays in the morning, then it's going to get ruined. The water is going to be considered lina, but it's not going to be lina even though it passed shkia. That's Rav Chizda. He's more mekel. For Rav Yochanan Amar, now we're going to read it the way the Gemara, the Gemara assumes it is at first, but later on there's going to be an entirely different interpretation of what Rav Yochanan says. Rabbi Yochanan seems to be saying, since it was lowered down, meaning since it was lowered down before Shkia, Shuv ein maleu. You can't bring it up till the next morning. So he seems to be machmer. He says you can't even use it leivarim. You can't even use it for the avodah that's done by night if it was taken out of the pit, if it was raised up during the night. And certainly you're not going to be able to use it for matirin, for the avodah that's done by day, with water that was raised up during the night. Prak Gemara. So he seems to be the most machmer. Lememra, Zaktamar Lememra, the Avodas Laila Nami Lechazi. So that seems to be saying that, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that he's more machmer even than Reb Chia bar Yosef. And he says, I'm sorry, he says he's more machmer, not just more than Reb Chia, but even more than Reb Chia bar Yosef. Reb Chia bar Yosef said that you could use water that was raised up during the night for avodas that could be done by night, because it's not considered to be water that had a lina for that purpose. But we're saying now that according to Rabbi Yochanan, what was raised up during the night is not going to be used. It's not useful for Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim for anything, and you can't even use for avodas laila, meaning for emurim. Is that true?
How did practically works? A kohen who just did avodah at night. He was just doing the emurim.
Well, he could wash his hands by day.
But I'm saying if he comes in, and it's like,
what's the eitzah?
You don't wash. You don't
into the shita.
Yeah. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it seems to saying that like it goes down before, because it has to go down, right? It's supposed to. That's a mitzvah.
Right, it's supposed to go down, but there.
And then you miss the cutoff. You're done.
I mean, most of the Kaihanim, I think, normally worked from the early in the morning, right? They did the Trumas Hadesh, and that was the kickoff. As we said, they would wash their hands at that point. So I don't know if this was the typical situation at all. Yeah, so I can't answer a practical question on this.
All right.
In general, it's very hard in Kachim to answer practical questions. We don't have anything to hold on to, really. Unfortunately. In any case, the Gemara asks, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is this true that the water that was brought up at night is not available? It's considered to have a lina, and it can't be used for avodas halayla for the emurim. Remember the avodas halayla nami lechazi v'amar Ravasi Rabbi Yochanan. Ravasi said b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, mishmei de elfa. They said b'shem elfa. Kier shaloi shaku mi be'erev. Kier that had not been excuse me, that had not been placed lower down into the waters, the well from before Shkia. You could still use it for avodas laila, right? So he's saying very directly that you can use the water, even though it was left out. It had the lina of the laila lina, because it's only being used for evarim, for the avodah that you do at night. At this point, the Gemara understands that to mean, but he can't be used for the next day's kiddush, meaning for the matirin. So Gemara, so l'chayrid shver, right? We seem to say that Rabbi Yochanan said that it can't be used even for the avodas laila. Now we're saying that it could be used for the avodas laila, the water that was out by night. So the Gemara goes back and it reassesses the understanding of what Rabbi Yochanan said.
I'm sorry, where are we up to?
We're on the bottom of Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. So now, as I intimated earlier when I was saying Rabbi Yochanan Shita, we're going to turn around what Rabbi Yochanan holds. When Rabbi Yochanan said his exact word, Kir Shekimit Sheshaku, since it was lower down, Shuv Ein Maleyu, when he said that, he was talking Lavodas Yoim. He meant that it can't be brought up if you want to use it to wash for the Avodas Yoim, for the Matirin. But Ein Chanami, Aval Avodas Laila Chazi. But it could be used for avodas laila. So Akamari Hachi Hainu de Reb Chia bar Yosef. That's exactly what Rabbi Yosef, the original Mandamar, who said that the water that was lon to the night, it could be used for night avodas, and the water that, but it can't be used for the day avodas, for the matirim. So the Gemara, it says Ika beinayu gzeir shikua. Gemara answers that there's a difference, the gzeir shikua, which is really a lot more than what it sounds like. It's not saying the Ika beinayu, it's really saying the pshat is really different. That means when we say that Rabbi Yochanan, when we say that Rabbi Yochanan says you can't pick up the kiyar, because then it will become possible for the avodah. We said it's talking about the day avodah, not the matirim, not for the. We say that you pick it up at night. It's going to be possible for the day avodah. We didn't mean that by bringing it up it's going to be possible. What we meant to say is you're not allowed to bring it up. And he holds it's a takanas chacham, be'etzem, that he really holds like Rav Chizda, that being brought, he really is mekel, even more mekel. He holds like Rav Chizda, that you don't have to, the water, if it was brought up at night, is kosher for both for the night avodah as well as the day avodah, which is Rav Chizda's shita. But he said that you should know there's a takana, gzeira shikua, that the chamu mesaken, you shouldn't do so. Because we're worried, once you bring up the water, everyone agrees, even Rav Chizda agrees that in the morning it has to be shikua, it has to be lowered down into the well. Because then it's for sure lina led according to everyone. So Rabbi Yochanan said, in addition to, although Rav Chizda is right that there's no problem with using the water that was brought up at night for the following day's avodah, but we're worried that you might forget to put it back before the morning. They're busy doing things, and they'll get involved in the avodah, and they won't lower it down, and then there won't be any water for the kehanim to wash their hands for the next day. So that is the Gemara's current understanding of Rabbi Yochanan. Back to Gemara. And the Gemara sort of asks a question, which is not really, I will say, I mean, I didn't see that Rashi said it, but the way we're getting to a lot of the things that we explained, the Gemara is going to explain more directly, but it's sort of like asks this question from the beginning. This is a Gemara that we saw a couple of blot ago, yesterday, 1 or 2 days ago. He said that if they used to have the Trumas Hadeshen first thing in the morning before the sun even rose, if he was Makadosh Yada for the Trumas Hadeshen, L'machar ein tzarich l'kadosh. He doesn't have to wash his hands again. Shefar kiddush mitchilas avodah, because he already was mekadosh mitchilas avodah. Bishlam l'rava. So we had the question over there: how does this work with the machlokes Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Elazar? Rebbe says that the person, again, we're talking about the person. We're not talking about the meikir, but the person becomes pasul, his rechitzas yadayim v'raglayim becomes pasul the following day, and Reb Shimon ben Elazar says you can even go 10 days. Doesn't make a difference. You can keep going. So the Gemara says, so we had a question. How do we understand this member of Rabbi Yochanan with the machlekes Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Elazar? So Bishlam l'Rava demukim lahi Reb Elazar Reb Shimon. He explained that which we said, that you can wash your hands before sunrise and then use it for the next day, so that it makes sense. We're going according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So then this member over here of Rabbi Yochanan is going in Rebbe, which I'm going to parenthetically, you don't have to pay any attention to this point, but it really bothers me. We had mentioned before that Rabbi Yochanan holds partially like Reb Shimon ben Elazar and partially not. I don't know how you could then say that this is going, that one thing he says like Reb Shimon ben Elazar, another one he says like Rebbe, if he didn't really hold like Reb Shimon ben Elazar. He said like some version of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So I'm not exactly sure mechanically how that works. So, but in any case, but that's what the Gemara says. If you could say that this over here is going according to Rebbe that holds that it apostles for the person for the next day, and that's why when you say you have to bring it down, that you're mechuyev to bring it down, it's like Rebbe because we're worried you're not going to bring it back up. And the other one is which say that you don't have to put it down before daybreak. That's like Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. He held that it could be Rabbi Shimon Elazar holds the water is also not ruined by Lina. Abaya, according to Abaya, if you remember, Abaya had said that the mukim lo karebi. He said it's going like Rebbe, and he said it's all takanas chachamim, that the water on the person becomes possible. Kasha the Rebbe ad Rebbe. How could we say on one time that Rebbe says that he could wash his hands beforehand, and when we don't say anything in that case by Trumas Hadeshin, that he has to then go quickly bring the lower down the water immediately afterwards because of this takana. And in the other sugya, in the other member of Rabbi Yochanan, he says it's exeris shikua that you're not allowed to really bring it up because people are going to forget. So he should have said at least by the Trumas Hadeshin that they have to immediately bring it down because of this fear. Why does in one place it sound like you do have to lower, in another place it doesn't say anything? And for the Gemara, the misalik v'hader mashkala. When he said by Trumas Hadeshin, we said that he picks it up, even though it didn't say that he has to go lower it again because of the problem of in the morning that you need to have it brought down. Yeah, it can't be out. It's going to be lina. That's what it meant. It meant that they take it out and they bring it down. Frak the Gemara, ihachi lemachar eine mekadesh. What is it now? At this point, we're going back to the original member of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan had said that we said at night he has to. He can't be malet, like we said, because of a gzeira shikua, right? What the member of Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan makia kivin sheshaku shuv en maleyu. Once it goes down, you can't be malet. Then we said from Ravasi Rabbi Yochanan mishmeid ilfa kia shalaka me'erev mekajmen la'avodas laila. We said, but then this is where we said we saw that this helped us understand what Rabbi Yochanan was saying. They said b'shem mishmeid ilfa that if you didn't bring it down by night, you could be mekadesh by night. Or lamacher ain't a mekadesh. We said, but lamacher you can't be mekadesh. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? Lamacher ain't a mekadesh. Amai. Why can't he be mekadesh the next morning? If we're saying that he put it back, if he has to return it, misalik v'hader shaka, why can't he use it the next morning? So the Gemara ain't tzarich l'kadesh. No, it's saying the other way around. Ain't tzarich l'kadesh. It's saying about the din. I think what he's saying is that that since it's close to the morning, the washing that he did then is sufficient. I'm not sure if that's what it's talking about. I have to really look at Rashi for a second.
According to the Rashi, you're saying, yeah, Mashani ain't tzarich l'kadosh.
Mashani ain't tzarich l'kadosh. Comma the kivit shekiddush la'avodas laila ain't tzarich l'macha. Vashmin the ain't lina me'elis b'kiddush. Ukeder Rabbi Elazar was saying like the sheet of Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon that you don't have to mukas, and it goes for 10 days. Zak Gemara. Remember the matira michzichaz. So now we're saying that even if it goes up at night, it's still good for the next day. Haineder of Chizda. Now we're back to saying it's like a Rav Chizda. But we said before, mitzvah shikua. The difference is, Einachanami, he holds like Rav Chizda, the Ikar Adin, but he's not the Nafkamina. This is why I said that we're really getting back to where we were before, that it's a mitzvah shikua, that they're not, you shouldn't, unless it's necessary, like for the Trumas Hadeshin. Other than that, you shouldn't bring it up because we're worried you're going to forget. No one would know when the time of the Trumas Hadeshin was, that everyone at the Kahanim have to all go running to go do the Avodah. Until they heard the sound of the wood. She'asa ben Katan muchni lakir, because Ben Katan had made this windlass, this crank to bring up the kier from where it was submerged. And when they heard that, early in the morning before sunrise, they would go to know that it was time to go wash their hands. So tomorrow, my love the masalik lay. L'chayr, that must mean that they took the water out from where it was in. Alma mashkale. So you see that they did submerge it. So this is l'chayr shverim of Chizda. Rav Chizda says you don't have to put it down. There's no need to put the water down to bring it down. Because the Gemara at this point is assuming that the sound of the crank is only to raise up the water. When you want to put the kier down, you just throw it into the water. I don't know, it seems like they weren't worried about it breaking. They just tossed it into the water and it would be fine. The noise was from raising it up, but they only have to raise it up if they had previously brought it down. So the mashkale. We're talking about when they lowered it down. What noise does it make? So the mashkale begilgala, the mashkale bechumrisa. They used the crank, or what they called it, either gilgala, was it the wheel, or chumrisa is another word for the crank. They would lower it down, even though it was unnecessary, in order that people should hear, the kahanim should hear and go know that it's time to go do the avodah. They'll come. But there were these people named the Gvini, they were called the Gvini, that they would go make the noise that people would come out to go do the avodah. The kahanim would hear and do the avodah. So the shama mehayasi. They had two different things. They would both hear the crank and they would hear the Gvini yelling out, "It's time to go." Both of them were true. Okay, let's go a little bit weit. Gufa. Amr Rav Yosef Reb Chanina. Kol kier she'ein boy kedei lekadosh arba kahanim menu ein mekadshim boy. We said before that the shear of the size of the kier, we learned from Aaron, Moshe of Aaron Ubanov, that's 4 people, had to be enough water to mekadosh 4 kahanim's hands and feet. Shenema v'rachtan menu Moshe of Aaron Ubanov. Prekdamar meisvei kol akel mekadshim boy bein she'esh behen revius bein she'ein behen revius. We have a brisa that says that it can have either revius, more than revius, or less than revius. Less than a revius is clearly not enough to be mekadosh 4 people's hands and feet. Ovachi klisharis, as long as it's a klisharis. Amrada baracha b'kodeach b'soichai. We're talking about not that it was a separate kli. It means that they attached a klisharis to the outside of the kier, and they were pouring out through that second kli. But it was all part of the water of the actual kier. It wasn't a separate kli. Einachanami, you couldn't do it from a klisharis that doesn't have a revius.
Meaning the smallest, the big one had to have for 4, and the little one, the additional one, the kedeach.
There was no shear. As long as it was a klisharis, it was good. It was basically, I don't know why, it's basically a spout. So I'm not sure how this is different than a spout. But I guess they took a cup and they grafted it onto the side. Yeah. In fact, the Gemara asks a separate question. We said that any klisharis is good. It says, the Torah says about the kier, is the pasuk, it says mimenu from the kier. So why is saying from any klisharis? This should be also what we just discussed. Amar Rachmana yirchatzu. It says a lashon yirchatzu, l'rab is klisharis, to klisharis. Yachi kli chayil nami. Once it says yirchatzu, it means anything. So why does it have to be a klisharis? It should be any kli. Amar Abaya, kli chayil ematzis amrit. You can't say kli chayil is kasher, mikal v'chaymer. Mikane, from the base of the kier. Uma kane shenimshach imay. The kane, the base of the kier, is part of the kier. Einim Kaddish, if you use that to be Reichel Yadayim Reglaim, it's not going to be Mekadesh. Kli Chol she'einin Meshachim B'nei, didn't she'einin Mekadesh? In fact, the Gemara, the first question is, V'kanoi minolan, how do you know that a kanoi taka, you can't use the base to wash? The tiny Yehuda, maybe you could use the base to wash the hands and feet of the Kehanim. Just like the kir itself is Mekadesh. Talmud Loima, V'azisa kir nechayshis, v'kanoi nechayshis. Torah says you make a kir, the kir itself out of copper, and the base should also be copper. L'nechayshis is a kikshaktiv. The Torah is saying that they're both similar, they're made out of nechayshis, but that's it. They're not similar in any other way, that the kanai, the base, cannot be used to wash his hands. So if the base can't be used to wash hands, certainly another klishar, something that's not a klisharis, can't be used to wash hands. Amalei mazutra breder of Mary Lavina Malakana shein asil l'soichai. How can you bring kakal v'chaymer from the base? The base is not used. It's not intended to have. Obviously, it had something that was able to be makabel water, but that wasn't his intention. It was intended just to hold up the kir. It wasn't used to hold things. But maybe a cup, even though it's not a klishash, you could use. Ela mimenu. We learn from the pasuk word mimenu lemute klichol. That excludes klichol. Ihachi klisharis nami. So let the mimenu also exclude klisharis. But the Torah added yechzu. Ma roy is there. So why do we pick to add a klisharis and not a klichol? Obviously, klisharis is the more likely thing that we're going to be marba and we're going to be memayet a klichol. Okay, we'll stop over here. Tomorrow.